Hi, my name is Jay Perry. I was raised in San Diego. I've been cooking for 30 years, and I'm a chef here at Oregon State University. You know, you have a lot of dreams when you're a kid. You grow up, you want to be this hero, you want to be that. Mine was to be a baseball player. I've always wanted to play baseball. It's the sport I kind of loved the most growing up as a kid, and once I picked up a ball, it's like the moment I had it in my hand, I knew that that's what I wanted to be. And that dream only lasted for so long because of a lot of things that just started to happen in my life as a child. We moved from San Diego to a desert. That time in my life in the 5th grade really kind of changed my life and my thinking about life and this identity that I supposedly had, I didn't have anymore. Just in the neighborhood, was a neighborhood boy, and invited me over to his house, and I was in 5th grade, really didn't know much. He started, I guess at that time I would say it's molesting me and sexually, and I didn't really know what it was at the time. I just had this experience in my life, and I was just kind of left confused. And then it happened again by another boy in the same neighborhood, and I kind of just didn't know what to do. I felt embarrassed, I felt ashamed, and I think at that time my identity and just whatever I had inside me just started to fade away, and really didn't have anybody to talk to, and I started to feel angry and different. Baseball was still in my life, but then my parents, when I was 13, decided to separate and get a divorce from each other, and we left and went back to San Diego, and I never picked up a baseball again after that. I left San Diego and moved to Los Angeles to be in a different environment, and while there I worked at a hotel, and I learned at that time by seeing the executive chef there and seeing the kind of system they had there and this whole brigade in the kitchen, I realized at that moment I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to be that guy. I even told my dad when my dad came to visit me, I said, "Dad, you see that guy? He's the executive chef. And I want to be him, and I'm going to be him." A chef not having his own knife in a kitchen is like a guitar player for a rock band showing up to his concert without his guitar. And so I just started to learn how to cook and started working various kitchens here and there, and just trying to learn on my own. And then I met these Italian guys, and they took me under the wing and showed me how to make pasta. And they invited me to come out to Italy one time, and so I thought about it and decided I was going to do that. But just before I left, I met an Italian chef of a restaurant that was about to open, and he gave me a number. And he said just to call this person when you get out there. But the thing is, I needed to learn how to speak Italian because this person didn't speak any English. And I packed up my records, packed up some bags, and moved out there and did that for a while. I started to learn the language and figured if I'm going to learn how to be a chef, there's no better place to do it than to be in Europe and Italy. And so did that for about 1.5 years and came back. And then I decided I'm going to continue my career here in San Diego. And I went to that chef and I said, "I'm back." And when I left, I spoke English. When I returned, I spoke Italian. He taught me so many things about food and the simplicity of Italian cooking and the history of it. Things that I thought you can never really learn this in school. I'm learning from this guy who was a 5th-generation chef and taught me all these things of what he had learned ever since he was a kid, and he was passing them on to me. And I had never had that before when I was a child. I grew up, and as I think about it right now, and it was something probably when I was a kid in 5th grade and that molestation that happened, I think all my dreams were broken, and here this guy was going to take me and put a new dream in my heart and show me what it means to be a chef. And so I was really, really excited about that. And it changed my life because it gave me a new passion for something. When you're not passionate about something, I don't know how it is, I don't know how you can live, and I don't know how you make it in life when there's nothing that you're so passionate about. And so food gave me a passion in Italian food, and so as I started to grow in the culinary world and really this is what I wanted to be, I finally left after 3 or 4 years working with him, and then an opportunity came for me to be an executive chef of a restaurant for the first time. I had this double life of being a chef and being a nightclub promoter, DJ, and I started getting involved with just a lot of drugs. What started to happen was that lifestyle started taking me away from cooking. I was more drawn to DJs and drugs and nightlife than ever before. And in that time, I met a girl, and we hung out, and we were dating, and she got pregnant. And that just threw me back. She wanted to keep it, and that scared me. And I didn't know what to do, because here I am now going to be a dad, and I didn't know a thing about fatherhood. I didn't know a thing about being a man, because I was never really taught by my dad how to really be a man. And I remember at the time when she was born, I was so scared, but when she came out, it's like this joy, this love just came out. I never really thought about God before much until I saw her come out. I started to think about God as a creator, as a person. I knew that there was a God. I wanted to be a dad. And as time grew by, in 6 months, she decided she didn't want to be with me anymore, and I realized that that was probably the best thing for us. I think for the first time in my life, I felt like a failure. I felt like I failed my child. I failed any possibility of being a dad to this little girl whose dreams were going to be shattered before she can even say her first word. And that just devastated me. I remember going back into my cooking, and that started to fall back into me, and it started to all fall into place. And yet at the same time as that's falling into place, my life was falling apart because what I really wanted I didn't have. I wanted to hold my daughter, and I wanted to be a dad. And it was at that time where I came home one day, and I just fell on my knees because I looked over and I saw that she wasn't there for the weekend, and I cried out so hard to God, and I asked God, why does this hurt, God? Why am I hurting so bad? And when I was crying out, you know when you just cry and you can't cry anymore? There's just a part of you where you just feel empty. It was at that moment, through that, I just heard like this, I guess you can call it a voice, just say, you need my son, Jesus. And when I heard that name for the first time, it rocked my world. Because here is this name being told to me by something in my head that's saying, you need to know Jesus, turn to Jesus. You need to know him. If you want to know what's wrong with you, go to him. I remember December 30th, 1963 is the day I was born. But there's another day that is significant to the life of a believer, is when Jesus comes in his life for the first time and changes him forever. And I remember it was Easter Sunday, 1998, where I just heard the voice of God just say, get up, get dressed, grab your Bible, and go to church. I got up, and I just knew that God was saying, this is going to be the first day for the rest of your life. It's going to change right now. There was a call to come forward and says, Jesus is willing to give you freedom. Best decision I ever made, running forward and saying, Jesus, I want to give you my life, and I want to be different this point forward. And then eventually I met Christy, and who I didn't realize was going to be my wife. And I started to see my daughter. We started to see each other on a regular basis. After several years, or a couple years of just serving God at church, I realized it was time to leave, and my daughter had moved to Seattle at that time. I realized I wanted to be close to her. Christy and I continued a long-distance relationship, and I knew Christy was from Oregon, so I knew one day she would come back up. I realized for the first time that Christy was going to be the person I married, and that God was bringing a wife in my life. And here I am, a man who as a child was never ready to be a husband, and was never taught how to be a husband. And I came from a broken family. I never imagined having a wife and being married, but yet the reality was true and existed. And so I just remember moving to Seattle, and that's when just my career again just started to take off. And here I am working at one of the best places in the country, a destination spot in the world. And so now, as working as a chef de cuisine in this place, starting to really earn a reputation for the food that I was doing. And I just realized how much I love cooking. And at the same time, I realized how much I loved Christy. And we got married, and we had our reception at the Salish Lodge. And it was one of the best days to get married to her, and to be a chef at this place, and I was so excited. But Christy was from Oregon, and things were about to change again in our lives.
This is Jay, my dad, and he's a chef. And right now he's in the kitchen cooking pasta.
So one day Christy, being from Oregon, decided that she wanted to move to Corvallis, and I gave that some thought, and I said, well, let's go visit Corvallis. And so we came down here. I looked around at the setting, I looked at the environment, I looked at the campus, and I just realized that God was just saying, Jay, this is the place you're going to raise your children. I applied for a position here at Oregon State University. They responded. I came in for an interview, and I got the job. And I really am thankful, because I would have never dreamed in a million years that I would ever be a chef on campus at a university. A school was never good for me, but yet here I am on a higher education level of cooking. I get to cook for so many people. I get just to be here and live out my dream. I get to show what I learned to students. I get to be able to just be around people and help with their lives and cook great food. And that's what I like to do. I'm a chef. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I would have never dreamed that I would have been here on this campus doing what I get to do. Never be afraid. Never be afraid to let the circumstances and the things that happened in your life think that that's what your life is going to be like. Because it can change. And maybe you don't have the power to change it, but there's a God in heaven who does, and He cares about you and everything that's happened in your life. And so you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be afraid anymore, because there's freedom in trust.